Hey guys, Kuroda here. Hope everybody's doing well. Today I want to talk to you guys about Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and I want to specifically talk about characters that I believe have a chance of being included in the game. Now, I want to say that with this list, it's not just a list about what characters I think should be in the game. I am basing this list on what I think is likely, what characters are likely candidates based on several things. First of all, based on some leaks and rumors, although you can't really count on them too much. What I try to do when I do research on things is I try to find common threads and things, so some of this is based on leaks a little bit. But not just that, I think a lot of what this list will entail is common sense, really, and I also want to talk about the history of some characters' inclusion, or not, I should say, lack of inclusion in previous Smash Brothers games, and also things like the Smash Ballot and their popularity to base this list on. Yes, there's a little of what I want to see, but I think also based on what a lot of people have wanted to see for a long time. So, without further ado, here's 7 characters that I believe have a good chance of making it into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Now, a big theory going around is that this will be this last Super Smash Bros. I don't know if that's the case or not, obviously, but I think there is clearly an effort to make this the ultimate Smash Bros. Game, with Sakurai basically including every single character that's been in the series so far. I think that, plus adding a few new characters, and of course with the Smash Ballot that was held shortly before Smash 4's release, I think that really the likelihood of seeing a lot more, well, at least a handful of more characters in this, I think the likelihood of seeing at least a handful more of characters that people have been wanting to see for a long time in this entry is very likely. And I want to talk about several characters. I think I'm going to first talk about 4 characters that I feel that are first-party characters that are very likely. So, the first one I want to talk about is King K. Rool. Now, why do I think King K. Rool has a shot? Personally, I think of probably anybody on this list, he has the best shot. And the reason for that is the sheer demand for him and Ridley specifically. People really want more bad guys in the series. That's been a complaint for a long time, that there haven't been enough bad guys, enemies, all of that. We've had Bowser, we've had Ganondorf, we've had Mewtwo if you can count him, we've had Wolf, who's sort of a bad guy. I guess Wario would count too, but a lot of people really wanted to see King K. Rool. And I think another reason people wanted to see King K. Rool a lot is that he hasn't really been in any games in quite a long time. So I think a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia for the character and would like to see the character. And quite frankly, he did really well in the Smash Ballot, to the point where he received a Mii Fighter costume in Super Smash Bros. 4. I think King K. Rool is very likely. I think he would make a great addition, another heavyweight character. I think, I could see him being a sort of clone of possibly DDD or something, or even Bowser. I hope that's not the case. I hope he has his own unique moveset. But I think there's a lot they could potentially do with the character, and I think now, especially with Ridley being introduced into the series, Sakurai saying that, previously saying he's just too big, it's impossible. Well, now the impossible is possible, and we have Ridley. So I think the possibility of King K. Rool getting in is very high. And despite what a lot of people think, I don't think there's any kind of rights issue there. I mean, especially if Cloud got in, I think that really broke the doors down for other characters getting in. And I'm pretty sure Nintendo at this point, and in fact I recall them trademarking King K. Rool's name around the time of Smash 4 when they released the Mii Fighter costume. So if they could release him as a Mii Fighter costume and all that, I'm fairly certain that they wouldn't have an issue in actually getting him in the game. So I think really, of all the characters on this list, he may very well be the character that gets in. I wouldn't even doubt if he was one of the next ones announced, or at the very least ended up being a DLC fighter or whatever. Along with King K. Rool, I want to talk about Dixie Kong. Now, why I think Dixie Kong is very likely is because, first of all, we should talk about the new Echo Fighter. Well, I probably shouldn't call it a new concept because you've had clones and all those things going back since Melee. But I think it would be likely that they could put a different skin on Diddy Kong and essentially give or take certain moves, give Dixie Kong similar moves. I mean, I would at least want to see a difference in, her being able to flutter or glide, or however you want to say, with her ponytail. So I'd actually like to see her as a unique fighter. I'm not a huge fan of the Echo Fighter thing. I wish personally every character had a different moveset, but I understand it practically, and I understand it for the creators of the game to give more options for characters without having to completely create a new character. So I think Dixie Kong is actually likely as well. I think including Dixie, Diddy, Donkey, and King K. Rool would be an awesome way to round off the Donkey Kong franchise, and I think a lot of people would have a lot of fun with it. And Dixie Kong, I could see them pushing for more female fighters. I could see them pushing for more non-human characters, and I think Dixie Kong really fits the bill really well. And I think also it helps her that she recently was in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, both for the Wii U, and they did re-release it on the Switch, so that's sort of... Nintendo does like to put characters into kind of... I don't want to use that dirty word advertise, but to sort of promote the current games on the system, and I think Dixie Kong would be a wonderful fit, so I think she's also another likely one. Another likely one, based along these same kind of lines, but kind of a more... not extreme version, but a better example of an Echo Fighter is Dark Samus. There's been leaks about Dark Samus, and it seems likely to me, I think, because I think Dark Samus would be an easy Echo Fighter to make, and would also be a great way to promote Metroid Prime 4's release sometime within the next year or two, I'd imagine. So I could see Dark Samus making it easily. And I think Metroid is a franchise that does not have very much representation in Smash at all, and a lot of people have been wanting more representation of Metroid in the Smash Brothers universe, so I think it's likely. Now, unfortunately for Dark Samus, the unfortunate thing about it is we'd have 3 Samuses, but you would essentially have a clone or Echo Fighter of Samus, but it seems a likely pick. I could give or take it, really. I'd rather see them put in something else from Metroid. Not another Samus, but if we have 3 Links, I could see why we would have 3 Samuses, so I think Dark Samus is a very likely choice, and based on a very recent leak where there was a lot of vague... It was somebody on 4chan, which basically they put out a bunch of riddles about 11 fighters that might be released, and one of them was Dark Samus, or at least people assume is Dark Samus based on the hints. And King K. Rool and Dixie Kong, I should mention as well, were also part of that rumor, or at least what people perceive to be as part of that leak. So, whether that leak holds any water or not, I don't know. But Dark Samus, a lot of people have been talking about, and I think Dark Samus is actually very likely, just based on convenience and based on wanting to promote a game like Metroid Prime 4, or even Metroid Samus Returns, or just the Metroid series in general, which seems to be getting a nice, as a Metroid fan, a wonderful new breath of fresh air, which I'm super excited about. So I think Dark Samus really has a good chance. The last of the first-party characters that I want to talk about is a Pokemon, actually. I think it's very likely we would see another Pokemon, and I think, based on what a lot of people have been saying and what a lot of rumors are suggesting, is Decidueye, who is a Gen 7 Pokemon. I think that's very likely because, first of all, Decidueye, from what I understand, is a grass type, and also is an archer, and there was basically one of the riddles in the recent leak suggested a archer who a lot of people assume is Decidueye, and a lot of people aside from that leak have been talking about Decidueye because I could see them wanting to possibly put another grass type Pokemon in, and Smash has a history of including a character from that current gen of Pokemon. See Greninja for the last Smash, Lucario for Smash Bros. Brawl, Pichu for Smash Bros. Melee. It's just very likely to happen, I think, that we're going to get some kind of Pokemon Sun and Moon representative. Could it possibly be another Pokemon aside from Decidueye? Yeah, I think Decidueye is the most likely candidate, especially since it's one of the final form, one of the 3 starters. But you know, you never know. I could totally be wrong there. It could be some other Pokemon from Pokemon Sun and Moon, but I think based on what a lot of people are saying, Decidueye seems to have the best shot. And I think it's almost a given that we're going to see another Pokemon added. Pokemon's too huge of a franchise for them to not put some other character in it, so it seems very likely. So what I want to do now is move on to the third-party characters, and I've got 3 of them here that I think are very likely. The first character I want to talk about is Rayman. Now, people may scratch their heads seeing Rayman, but I think Rayman has a better chance than almost any other third-party character, and I'll explain why. First of all, there were rumors about Rayman being included in Smash Bros. 4 since way back then, and he also ended up being featured in Smash 4 as a trophy. And I also really, really believe, given the very good relationship that Nintendo and Ubisoft have been having for the last several years, I think it's very likely that Nintendo and Ubisoft both would want to include some kind of Ubisoft character. And I think more than any other franchise of Ubisoft's, I think Rayman really fits the bill. And you know, with Rayman Legends on the Wii U, and with Ubisoft working on Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, I think it's very likely that we would see Rayman, probably more than any other third-party character at this point, because again, you have to go by the fact that Nintendo has a great relationship with them, and Rayman's a popular character. I'm sure Rayman got a lot of votes on the Smash ballot, and it seems to me it seems that Rayman is a no-brainer and a shoo-in. I really think that we're going to see Rayman as a character, without question. If not Rayman, again, some kind of Ubisoft representation, but I really can't think of another character that would fit the bill more than Rayman. So I think his look and his whole design and his potential moveset would just work really well in Super Smash Bros. So to be honest, I'll be very surprised if Rayman is not included. The next one I want to talk about is sort of a gray area, whether this character is a third-party character or a first-party character, or I guess you could say a second-party character. I don't know. But it's my personal favorite and my personal #1 choice, and that's Geno. Now, a lot of people who aren't familiar with the history of Geno in Super Smash Bros. Or trying to be included in Super Smash Bros. And who don't know the character, I would imagine would see Geno as a very unlikely candidate. But I actually think Geno has an extremely good shot, good chance to get into this game. And the reason for that being is that, first of all, Geno is an incredibly popular and requested character in the series, going all the way back to Super Smash Bros. Brawl. There was actually a poll done in Japan that Sakurai did online, asking people what characters they want to see in Brawl. Several of the characters that end up being featured in Brawl, such as Sonic, King Dedede, Wario, were characters that were in like the top 5 or at least 10 in that poll, and they were included in the game. Geno was number 2 or 3 in that poll. I mean, Geno got a lot of votes, and Geno will also, I know, got a lot of votes in the Smash ballot before before Super Smash Bros. 4's release, and also ended up being a Mii fighter costume in the last Smash Bros. Entry. So I think Geno's chances of getting in are very high, and the reveal of Bayonetta, Corrin, and Geno's Mii fighter costume. Sakurai actually made a statement that he had wanted Geno in the game since Brawl. Had tried to get him in Brawl, didn't work, and it sounds like tried to get him in Smash 4 as well, but I could see Square Enix negotiating that with Sakurai and wanting Cloud or as a representation for them for Smash Brothers rather than Geno, so that makes sense to me. However, now we already have Cloud in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I think it's extremely likely at this point that we'll be able to get Geno in. I think the fact that, again, Sakurai has wanted him in, fans have wanted him in. He's gotten in 2 different separate polls. He got a ton of votes. He ended up getting a Mii fighter costume. I think him and King K. Rool really have probably the best chance of getting in over anybody, just given the fact that they are such high demand characters for so long. It may be odd to some of you who aren't really familiar with Geno as a character, since he was only really in one game and made a small cameo in another game. And Super Mario RPG is a game that's, well over 20 years old now, and Geno has really made no appearances in that. But Smash also has a history of bringing back really old retro characters that just have been gone for many decades. See Ice Climbers, see Mr. Game & Watch, see Pit, up until Brawl anyway. Smash Bros. Kind of revitalized that franchise, but see Duck Hunt, see Rob the Robot randomly, I mean, I think if some of those characters got in, I don't think Geno is that far-fetched. So I really, really think, and I really hope, because he's my #1 pick, that Geno will get into Super Smash Bros. And I think a lot of people are going to be really happy if that happens. And I think, as I said before, Sakurai wants to make the ultimate Smash, and I think by including Geno, by including K. Rool, by including Ridley, by including, all the characters from the past, I think he's really going to give people what they want, or is really trying to give the fans what they want, and, I salute him for it. The last character that I want to talk about, and is also another third-party character, is one that's been, and the reason I feel that I really need to mention this character is because the common thread in all the recent leaks, both before and after Nintendo's E3 presentation, have included this character, and I think it's very likely we're going to see Simon Belmont. And I would imagine he was also another character that got a lot of votes in the Smash ballot as well. I have no way of knowing that, obviously. Kind of wish Nintendo had shown us the results of that ballot. Would have been neat, but then I'm sure that was intentionally done because people would start haranguing them about characters that didn't make it. But regardless, I really think Simon Belmont has a very, very, very likely chance of getting in at this point. Most of the leaks that I've seen, as I said before, both pre and post E3, are showing, are talking about Simon Belmont. One leak said specifically it's going to be Ridley and it's going to be Simon Belmont. There's the most recent leak that person posted on 4chan hinted at Simon Belmont, or at least that's the way people are interpreting it. And I know there's been at least 1 or 2 other leaks as well that have also talked about Simon Belmont. I also can see, to be honest, with Snake being included in the game again. Obviously, Nintendo would have had to have some kind of talks with Konami over that, and I think if they were able to talk to Konami about that, I'd imagine either they would be able to convince them to include Simon, or honestly, I could even see Konami being like, yeah, we want more representation, A lot of companies really do, a lot of third-party developers, Smash Brothers seems to be it's a huge series, a huge game, and it includes an enormous amount of extremely popular video game characters, and I could see them even just agreeing or pushing for Simon Belmont. Because, and I think another reason is that Castlevania has a history on the Nintendo systems. I mean, the first 4 Castlevania games were on Nintendo systems. I mean, there's a ton of Castlevania games. There's Castlevania games on the NES, the Super NES, the N64, the Game Boy Advance. I mean, Castlevania has a long history on Nintendo platforms, and I think that Simon Belmont actually makes more sense as far as inclusion on a game like Super Smash Bros. Than even Snake. And I think his potential moveset with his whips and you know, with the cross and the knife and the axe and thing. I mean, Simon just has a huge moveset potential, and it would be hugely popular. He'd be a hugely popular character, and I think a lot of people would really be happy if he was included. So I honestly think of any of the third-party characters, I think Simon Belmont actually has a very good chance. And I'd love to see Simon Belmont as a character. As far as this list goes, I would be happy. As far as me personally, I could care less really if Dark Samus was in it. And Decidueye, it doesn't really matter. I haven't played Pokemon Sun and Moon. And Rayman, I've never played a lot of either. If Simon Belmont, Geno, and King K. Rool got in, that would be amazing. And Dixie Kong, that would be amazing. I don't think I'd need any other characters personally. So that's my opinion. I think all of these characters, you know, for better or worse, have an extremely good chance of getting in. I'm sure, you know, half of them won't get in. I mean, as much as I love Geno to get in, I could also see them deciding not to put Geno in. I could also see them deciding not to put King K. Rool in, and I could see them not deciding to put Simon Belmont in. But based on all the leaks that I've seen, based on the history of the series of rumors and what has been said by Sakurai himself and what fans have demanded, and just based on what has been done with the series in the past, I really feel that these characters have a very good chance to get in. As far as other characters that people have talked about, I will talk about very briefly. The big one being Waluigi. I'd love Waluigi, and I'm in that camp. I don't think it's right that people have been kind of harassing Sakurai about that. I think it sucks that he is an assist trophy, and I think it seems unlikely he'll get in. But I'd like to see Waluigi, but I just don't think it's feasible at this point.
Okay.
Bomberman is another one people have talked about. I think his inclusion as an assist trophy is great. I don't think it's gonna. Same with Knuckles, and I don't think it's very likely that some of these characters will get in. I'd like to see some of these characters in. I'd love to see Knuckles and Tails in. That'd be great. But I can't see them happening. The characters on the list, though, I think are all very viable characters and very likely. And who knows, maybe we'll see another Zelda character. You know, I'm sure we're going to get some... I wouldn't doubt if we got 1 or 2 other characters randomly that just come out of left field that you're going to be like, what? A lot of people have been talking about one of the characters from the ARMS games because of just... I could see Nintendo... And I could see that because Nintendo wanting to promote one of their new IPs. But... I think that's also unlikely. I think that game was released too soon, and I think this game has probably been in development too long to include that character. But you never know. I could be wrong there. So I think a lot of these characters that people are talking about are likely. Shovel Knight's another one I want to talk about. That'd be a pretty cool left field character, and I'm sure it's a character that's been that has been requested a lot. Especially, I'm sure Shovel Knight got a ton of votes in the Smash ballot. And I could see that happening. It'd be cool to see an indie character, and I think of any indie character, Shovel Knight or possibly Shantae would make the cut, so who knows. But, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope your dreams come true in terms of the final Smash Bros. Ultimate roster. Let me know in the comments below what characters you'd like to see, what you think of my thoughts, if you think any of these characters are likely to get in the game. And thanks for watching. If you guys just discovered this video, or discovered me through this video, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. I appreciate everybody checking it out, and have a nice day. Peace.